this might not be my most flattering angle, so let's fix that, right? Ooh, that sounded weird. That gradient though. Hi guys, my name is Julia. I am here with my homemade iced mocha latte and a Dunkin' Donuts cup because I reuse things. And today we are going to be talking about teen writing tips. I kind of feel qualified to talk about this because I'm a teen. I actually just turned 18. Very exciting. I'm adulting now. Ugh. But I'm also a writer. I have written 2 semi-successful novels on Wattpad, which I am not going to give you the names of because I do not want you finding them. Oh, it's a bit windy. Because I do not want you finding them because they are cringe. They are cringe AF. But now, as I'm writing a legit novel, that comes in handy, and all that writing experience comes in handy. So, my first tip of advice is write. And this is the most cliche thing that I can tell you. If you go on like any writing forum, like anywhere on Reddit pretty much, that's the first thing that they'll tell you. Writers write. If you want to be a writer, write. And that's really important because you can't just sit down one day and decide to write a book. That's not really how it works. Because if you do that, you will get burned out and then stop writing the book, and then you don't get a book written. So what I recommend you do is just start in slow bursts. Short story here, a poem there. Just write things, whatever you want. There's like a plant over there. I could just write a description about a plant. I used to do that a lot actually. And what really helped me hone my writing ability was I was a songwriter for many years. I probably wrote upwards of 70 songs in 3 years. That's what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to be a songwriter. And obviously I'm not doing that anymore, but that helped because I learned how to construct things in a way that was concise and I could get my point across to an audience very quickly. And that's good, whether you want to write poetry or you want to write songs or you want to write books or novellas or short stories or whatever the hell you want to write. You need to be able to communicate. So any form of writing, oh, we're shaking, it's windy. Any form of writing will be able to help you better communicate. So just get writing. Pick up a pen or your computer or, I don't know, a typewriter if that's more your speed, and just start writing things because that's going to help you. Okay, my second tip is to find your voice. And I'm not saying you need to know your voice when you start writing because you definitely don't. My writing style has changed so much from that first novel that I wrote to the one that I'm writing now that actually might be worth a damn. And you only do that by, throw back to the last tip, writing. So I have discovered that I am not this long sentence, flowy, really artistic literary writer. I, err on like more humorous side of things. I have a lot of sides, lots of jokes in my writing. It's very informal, very conversational, and that's how I like it. That's why I write in first person. And I made that choice because I knew my writing style. So, when you write anything about, if it's a shorter work 2 or 3 days later, if it's a longer work a couple months later, sit down and look at it. Just put it in front of you, take a pen out. I like a red pen. Do with that information what you will. And just look at it and dissect it. Like someone would dissect, like you would dissect any piece of literature in an English class. Just look at it critically and say, what do you notice about this writing? Are there words you repeat a lot? Do you err towards longer sentences, shorter sentences? Are you chuckling when you read it because you're like, huh, that's kind of funny? Or are you like emotional? How does it make you feel? And that will help you determine your writing style. And the more you look at your writing, the more you think critically about your own work, the more you'll start to notice these patterns and come to form a better grasp of what you're good at, what you like to write. And by doing that, you can focus your writing on stuff you're good at. There's no point in writing, I don't know, historical fiction when you actually want to be writing sci-fi, and that's what you're good at. So once you figure that out, you will become a more efficient, a better writer. Awesome. So writing tip number 3. This is another super cliche tip that you'll see everywhere, but teens especially need to hear this. I need to hear this when I was 14. I needed this, so I'm sure a lot of you do too. And that is read, and read some more. Because it's like musicians that don't listen to music. You will not find a musician that doesn't listen to music, but there are plenty of writers out there that don't read anything. More importantly than just reading things is reading in your genre. That is huge, is reading your genre. If you are writing a book that is like, I don't know, like teen, like YA, read YA. If you're writing a book that's historical fiction, read historical fiction. If you're writing a book that's, I don't know, like high fantasy, that's like, I don't know, high fantasy romance, read high fantasy romance. Because that's how you'll be able to detect tropes, cliches, what the general writing style of those books are. Because at the end of the day, you are writing for an audience. Because every writer says, I just want to write for myself. Writing makes me feel happy and full and satisfied. And that's great. But for people to actually buy your books and to make a career out of, and for you to make a career out of writing, you need to be writing for a specific group in mind. Because if you're writing, I don't know, high fantasy in the voice of chick lit, which is a term I don't like, but I mean, let's use it for right now, then when people buy your book, they'll be like, what is this? So you can't know how to brand yourself if you don't know what brand you're trying to fit into. So just read a lot. And it'll also help you hone your craft, because you can see how good plots are structured, how good sentences are structured, how good dialogue sounds, what correct punctuation is for dialogue. This is huge! And you only figure out those stuff by reading things. So read, and read your genre. Okay? Cool. Tip number 4 is outlining. So generally in writing, there are 2 schools of thought. There are the planners, which I am, and there are the pantsers. And planners outline, usually very detailed outlines, and they know what they're going to write before they write it. That's the key characteristic of this group. This group, the pantsers, sit down at a computer or at a piece of paper or a typewriter, what have you, and they just go. And when they start writing, maybe they have like a general idea in mind that they want to write a ghost story or whatever, and that's all they know. And then they'll just go with it and see where the story takes them. Pantsers freak me out because I'm just like, how do you do that? Like, I could never ever be a pantser. Like, yes, when I was writing fan fiction, I was a pantser just because, like, that's how you do fan fiction. But, like, now I'm like, I have like 9 outlines. I have like character outlines, and I have like the big plot outline. I'm like, I like outlines. So the only way you're going to figure out which group you like better, how you best write, is to try them. But I recommend for beginner writers, so teen writers, funny how that would work out, is that you outline. Because that's a great way to learn about story structure, is when you can look at your outline and see, okay, here's rising action, here's climax, and then here's the resolution, and you can look at it from that kind of perspective before you write to make sure you have a viable story, right? So look at your story from a storytelling perspective. And a great way to do that is to look at it all in bullet points before you even start writing, and you can make adjustments there, and then when you start writing, it's smooth sailing. And you know exactly what needs to happen to get from point A to point B. So, outline, at least the first one, so you know what story structure is. From then on, I don't, just do whatever you want, but outline that first book. Fifth and final tip, Don't look at other more experienced writers and beat yourself up about it. Reddit is a wonderful place. We're gonna have a language change. Reddit is a wonderful place. I love Reddit. I'm on it quite frequently. But it's also a very scary place. Especially for writers, because you see these people like, oh, I had a 1,000 word count goal for today, but I wrote 5,000 words. And you're sitting at your computer like, 5 words. And you're like, what am I gonna do with the rest of my life? I can't do this, this isn't working. And it's just a terrible feeling. But then just remember, a lot of these guys are professional writers. They're making a career out of writing. You're just starting. If you can only write 100 words a day and then you feel like wiped, that's fine. Just write something every day. A little bit. Like, it can be like an Instagram caption, I don't care, but, you know, write something every day. And don't beat yourself up about not being like the people you see online. Because you're young, you're just starting. I have to remind myself of this sometimes because I'm young and just starting too. Like, as much as I'm sitting on my high horse here, like, I'm gonna give other teens writing tips because I am so experienced at writing. I know this much compared to, you know, like everyone else in the world. So don't beat yourself up about taking things slowly. If it takes you 2 years to draft your first novel, you are not required, like a lot of other novelists, to bang novels out every 6 months. I do just want to remind you all to take your time. You will get there, and it's going to be, I'm not there, but I know that one day I'll be able to sit down and write 1,500 words in a, and be fine. But for right now, just do what you can and keep writing, because our thoughts deserve to be in the world. As horrible and cliche as that sounds, it's true. We are a very interesting generation with a lot of very interesting stories to tell, and I hope you guys tell them. And if you are working on a work in progress right now, leave a comment down below and tell me about it. I would love to hear about it, or even read some of it if you guys would let me. That'd be cool. I'm in the beta reader market, so yeah, like, subscribe, again, comment your work in progresses, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.